Hi, everyone, and welcome to our live stream, How to Do HTTP Load Balancing with NGINX as a Service for Azure. I'm Chris. I work in product marketing for NGINX, and I'm joined today by Mona and Sundar from our product management team. Let's briefly talk about what we'll be going through in the next half hour or so. So we're going to start with a quick overview of NGINX as a service for Azure. Then we're going to slide into the main event, the demo of how to do HTTP load balancing with NGINX as a service for Azure from Sundar. Then we'll get into some questions. And lastly, we'll wrap up with resources that will help you learn more. So what is F5 NGINX as a service for Azure? So powered by NGINX Plus, NGINX as a service for Azure is a fully managed service on Azure that removes the burden of having to deploy your own NGINX Plus cluster, install libraries, upgrade, and manage that cluster. This represents the first time that both Microsoft and F5 co-developed a first-party-like experience as a service that is tightly integrated with the Azure ecosystem to provide you with more options for your architecture in the cloud when selecting a load balancer or reverse proxy. All of this with pay-as-you-use pricing. NGINX as a service for Azure has advanced traffic management with active health checks and the full complement of NGINX Plus metrics, all accessible via Azure Monitor service. And you can bring your own configuration in order to make lift and shift of your workload to Azure platform a seamless reality, which is an immense advantage for using this service to reduce the migration effort. Overall, NGINX as a service for Azure is fast, secure, and efficient. And now I want to slide it over to Sundar, who's going to give us a demo, the main event today, how to do HTTP load balancing with NGINX as a service for Azure.
Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to give you a demo of NGINX as a service for Azure. I'll show you how you can deploy the upstream servers in NGINX as a service, as well as set up a configuration. You also can achieve it simple and easy, all under a few minutes. At the end of this short demo, you can see that we load balance customers' applications running in these two VMs, VM1 images and VM2 videos using NGINX for Azure, just as shown in the screen. So let's get started in this journey, beginning with the deployment. In the deployment, first we will start with building our Azure resource group named NGINX_demo5 so that we can deploy all of our resources such as upstream VMs, NGINX, VNet, etc. I would first deploy an upstream VM. I'll name the upstream VM. I'll name the VM as VM01 and open port 80. While keeping the rest of the fields as default, just as shown in the screen. I'll keep the networking as default. Now I'll download these keys so that I can SSH into the VM and install the NGINX web server. This upstream VM deployment is now completed. Next, we'll follow the instructions that's in this page and install the NGINX web server in this VM. Okay, for that, I will go to my terminal and SSH into this VM. Here, the NGINX, I've installed the NGINX, and I'll check a quick this like index.html file. And this looks good for VM01. I'll repeat the same process for second VM, that is VM02. I'll create the VM and name the VM as VM02 and enable the port 80 and port 22, just as I did before in VM01. Again, we'll download the key so that I can SSH into this VM as well and install the NGINX web server. Okay, since the deployment is complete, we'll connect to this VM using these instructions, these SSH instructions that Azure have provided. Okay, I'll copy these instructions and we'll connect using the SSH command via the terminal. Okay, let me install the, okay, once the connection is complete, let me install the NGINX web server in this VM as well and look into the index file. This again looks good. Now the deployment of these two upstream VMs are complete. I will go back to the same resource group and deploy the NGINX as a service. I will search for NGINX as a service in the marketplace and subscribe to this product. We'll deploy this NGINX for Azure by, I can give the name as NGINX underscore demo 5 and name NGINX. We can follow the instructions shown in this document. This is the standard plan. You can I'll select the standard plan, which is the official GA plan, and also can read about this pricing plan in greater detail. I'll begin with the NC capacity as like 20, which is NGINX capacity unit as 20. And for networking, I'll keep all the parameters as default and create a deployment. Once this deployment is complete, we will update the this network supported group to allow a TCP port 80 so that NGINX can receive a connection request from public internet. Now, after deployment, I want to validate if NGINX is up and running, for which I will go to the NGINX resource and copy the public IP address. It should ideally say, "Welcome to the NGINX for Azure." Yes, as you can see, the NGINX is up and running. Now the deployment is complete. We will move forward to the configuration, for which I will copy the private IP address of these upstream VMs, VM01 and 02, that are running the web applications that we that we just configured a while ago. Here you have an option to bring your own configuration from your on-prem setup or create a new config file. I will create a new config file, which I have prepared offline, and provide those private IP addresses of those upstream VMs. Once I save the configuration file, I will go back to the NGINX product and use the public IP address of that NGINX and see if it can load balance between these between those two VMs, VM01 and VM02, as we configured. Yeah, as seen in the screen, NGINX is load balancing between these VMs. And now let me touch on some of the core capabilities. Here, we understand that traffic might be increased, so you can scale your system easily. Customers can also enable monitoring, like Azure monitoring for the NGINX system by simply following the instructions shown in the screen. Okay, so here this is very simple Azure like monitoring as to toggle a switch. As you can see in the chart, you can use different metrics to evaluate the NGINX system. These were the base NCUs that I requested, those 20 NCUs, and these were the 20 NCUs that got provisioned. Now I will artificially make a request for 5,000 concurrent connections over 6 minutes so that we can mimic a scenario in which customers can scale up or scale down based on their traffic. Let me, just fast forward 6 minutes. When I refresh the metrics, you can see the spike in the traffic. And hence, as expected, the NCU consumed have increased. And in order to cope up with the increased traffic, we can scale down, or we can scale up simply very easily by scaling up, by sliding the window. Now, if I go back and look at these statistics after the system have a scale, you can see that these NCU requested have increased to 30. Hence, NCU provision is also increasing. The NCU consumption is is handled. If we look into a more finer detail, the NCU consumption have increased just as we expected. Now, fast forward after 6 minutes, the traffic have went down, and hence the NCU also went down. And customers can scale down their system by simply sliding back to their base NCUs. So this would bring us to the end of this demo. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to comment in the chat. Would be happy to get back to you.
Thank you, Sundar. That was great. It's great to see how easy it is to start recognizing value and get up and running with NGINX as a service for Azure. So let's kind of blow through a few questions that have been kind of recurring over the weeks since we've gone to general availability. Mona, Sundar, can you shed some light on how is NGINX as a service different from NGINX Plus?
Sure. So NGINX Plus is a software license that customers purchase in order to set up infrastructure for their architecture and manage deployment, upgrades, and maintenance. NGINX as a service for Azure, however, is a fully managed service that is co-developed by F5 and Microsoft to offer infrastructure as a service with full integration with the entire Azure ecosystem, so that we can give seamless and native first-party-like experience to make lift and shift and migration to the cloud easier. And yes, this is very specific right now just to Azure Cloud. So with this offering, we manage the infrastructure for you, and we take care of availability so that you can focus on your application and your business.
So talk to me a little bit more, please, about the availability. And one of the stats that I've heard you use before is that there's 99.95% service level ability or agreement. Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. So we have today 99.95% service level agreement for availability, and we achieve that by deploying an active pattern in order to remove a single point of failure for your architecture. So that you can trust that this service is up and running just like other services to fulfill the concept of service. And that's the basically true essence of a full managed service. And I encourage you to please review our architecture diagram in our documentation, which we're going to share the link right now in the comment to better understand the details.
Is NGINX as a service for Azure available in my subscription on Azure or in F5 owned subscriptions on Azure?
Thank you for that question. So the underlying compute resources are managed by us on your behalf and not directly visible to you in your subscription to give you the first party like native experience.
So how do I get started? Where do I find NGINX as a service for Azure?
As you saw from the demo, just search for NGINX as a service in Azure Marketplace or Azure Portal. And when you find the service, follow the instruction in our documentation on how to create deployment. Again, we are going to add the URL right there on how to create the deployment.
And what are the features that NGINX as a service for Azure currently supports?
So we have a long list of features and we continue adding the new capabilities every day. As you can imagine, the engine behind NGINX as a service for Azure is powered by NGINX Plus that has infinite capabilities. And some of the few want to mention is now caching, rate limiting, integration as part of being a service integration with Azure services such as Azure Monitor, Azure Key Vault, ability to scale. And I encourage you to look at our documentation as we continue growing this list of capabilities.
Does the service currently support layer 4 load balancing?
So today we only support layer 7, very similar to Azure App Gateway, but we are considering layer 4 as well in the future.
Okay. And we've seen a couple questions come in on this from the viewers. Thank you. How do I get charged for NGINX as a service for Azure?
Yes, thank you for the question on the further clarification for NGINX capacity unit or NCU. So we use NGINX capacity unit for pricing unit. And the benefit of that is that you can specify your desired capacity by number of NCUs without having to consider the regional hardware differences in different Azure regions. So that basically masks that details away to avoid complication or complexity. And you only specify NCU units, and each NCU units will give you some CPUs, some bandwidths, and some concurrent connections. And again, I encourage you to look at our documentation for the details of that.
Okay, so now the big question, you talked about NCUs. How much does it cost?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And in order for us to further simplify our pricing, we offer 3 simple tiers with 3 different rates that covers all the supported regions. We price per 10 NCU hourly, and the online calculator will give you not only the cost, your estimation for the cost, but also estimation for sizing your deployment. And these 3 tiers, they have 3 different rates, as I mentioned, but the offering is identical and same in all these 3 different tiers. It's just that so that you can select the tiers, and not the price wouldn't vary per region, again, for simplicity of pricing.
So thinking ahead, when should I consider scaling out my deployment?
So you saw that during the demo, Sundar was showing how to basically scale out, and also how to monitor if the number of NCUs that you are basically consuming increases over 90% of the requested NCUs. We recommend to scale out. Ability to scale out and scale in is very important to optimize performance and cost. And again, we have great level of documentation on best practices for scaling. I recommend looking at it. And again, Marco, gratefully pasting the link for you in the chat.
Mona, what regions does NGINX as a service for Azure support today?
So today we have 9 regions, and we selected these 9 regions to be the highest traffic regions on Azure. And again, we share the URL for the list of this region. And please share your requirement if you need the different regions or more regions. As we understand your requirement holistically, we'll consider adding those regions.
And what kind of logs does NGINX as a service support?
So NGINX supports today access logs so that you can troubleshoot server issues, analyze web traffic patterns, and monitor server performance. And we also support error logs so that you can troubleshoot and identify issues that may occur during the server operations, such as 400 for bad requests, 401 for unauthorized, or 500 internal errors, etc. So we give you enough information so that you can basically troubleshoot. And again, for more details, please visit our documentation for logging.
So I want to address some of the questions that are coming in from our viewers. Someone is asking if service discovery is available.
Service discovery, I believe, is available.
Okay. Also, does NGINX as a service for Azure have the sticky session replication between instances available? Thank you for the question, Gustavo.
Yes, so I will share I'm just reading the question. I'll share the doc on the chart that we explain exactly the difference between NGINX Plus and NGINX as a service, which cover exactly that point.
We have a question with regard to using other, I guess, kind of monitoring devices or monitoring services. Are you limited to using Microsoft Monitor, or can something like Datadog still be used?
So inside Azure platform today, that's what you use. And just one second. I'm still pasting the last question, the answer to last question, if you can give me a second. So Marco, can you share the answer that I typed? And for the Datadog, we don't have a native support for that yet.
I think we've gone through all other questions, but I'll leave that open for a minute to see if anything else comes through. Thank you for answering those. Kind of rapid fire there, but I think you shed a whole lot of light on that. There's a question on can we use NGINX Instance Manager with NGINX as a service for Azure?
Instance Manager with the service? No, not today.
Not currently. Okay. But similarly, it is not required, correct, to be able to use NGINX as a service for Azure.
And I am sending over the feature chart that I just mentioned earlier. Can be shared on the comment, which covers the long list of rows with differences between NGINX open source, NGINX Plus, and NGINX as a service for Azure. And that includes the sticky cookie and sticky route for session persistence.
There's a question that came in regarding regions, Mona, which I think you touched on a little bit earlier, but when will additional Azure regions be supported? And my sense is that they're being added on a weekly basis almost, but that if there are missing regions that folks should...
That's not true. So we support 9 regions, and the list is available as we shared in the documentation above. And as you provide your requirement, if you have region requirements, please reach out. Marco will share my email address with you, and per requirement, we will add more regions.
Thank you. Question that has come in is mutual TLS supported?
I am looking for that question. So we basically have SSL support, and it's offload. So it's not end-to-end. If that's what the question is, the answer is no.
Is autoscale available?
Autoscale is something we're working on, and it's not currently available, but it's on our roadmap.
We have a question on, can we use NGINX as a service as a Kubernetes ingress in Azure Kubernetes services?
Not today, not today, but please reach out to me. Marco shared my email address, and help me understand your requirements better. Yeah, that's something that we can consider.
And we have a question that came in regarding certificate management. Are certificates managed with Azure Key Vault or renewed, rotated, for example?
So yes, you can basically bring your certificate and manage it through Azure Key Vault. And that's part of the integration that we have with Azure Key Vault.
We do encourage feedback, and we would absolutely love to hear from you as to what your use cases are or potential use cases are with NGINX as a service for Azure. As Mona mentioned, her email has been posted into the chat, and she would welcome your feedback. We also want to put some links out there with regard to, again, where do I find NGINX as a service for Azure? And that's through the Azure Marketplace, and you can quickly search for it there. We also have a link to our product page. And as Mona has mentioned a number of times, there is an absolute wealth of information and great material amongst our NGINX as a service for Azure documentation. So we encourage you to look that over. And again, if there are questions that come up and we haven't addressed your particular issue and it's not covered there, do reach out to us. Sundar, thank you very, very much for that demo and showing us how easy it is to get up and running and recognize value with NGINX as a service for Azure. Mona, thank you very much for handling a wealth of questions, and we were very happy to see a lot of activity amongst our viewers, and hopefully they're as excited about this as we are.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting the session. Reach out to us with any question. We are here to understand your requirements and hear your feedback. And you can help by sharing your requirement. You can help shape the future of this product. So please reach out if you have customers, if you have requirements, if you have regions that you need, and we'll work together in order to satisfy your requirement.
Thank you, Chris, for hosting this, and it was great connecting with the community and learn from the community.